This is just a mini update on my journey as a YouTube aficionado. So basically, I'm figuring out how to do YouTube, and I think that if I try to also apply some of the lessons I've been acquiring online, or the things that I've been exposed to in terms of instruction, in terms of how to do YouTube, etc., can actually help me to maybe also give back to the community, maybe share some of the insights. And for me, one of the more important points as well is my personal journey vis-a-vis YouTube. How do I actually figure out my own style? Where is my niche? What can I actually say, which is actually extra, which is not a repetition of something else, and where I can take my journey eventually on YouTube as well. So basically, this is one of those moments where I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I find in physically my own point of view vis-a-vis the camera, vis-a-vis the environment. How do I find the optimal lighting? And I think that some of the things that can be of relevance to other people is that you've got to actually start looking for that point where you find the lighting fit what you're looking for. In other words, you will see a lot of advice, you will hear a lot of advice on lighting, etc., etc., and sometimes the lighting is never optimal, or sometimes you wish it were different. And I see it every so often myself. And I think that what is important is actually to start looking for that point where you will be actually okay with the lighting, etc., and the props, and whatever it is. And I think that as one can always see, maybe on platforms like TikTok, that some of the most successful people on those platforms even use their own hand, and it gives a very immediate sense, shaking camera, etc., etc., a very immediate sense of rapport with the audience and with the author itself, or say her or himself. And I think that for somebody who is still looking for how to present oneself, how to look for that point, the optimal strategy could be use some props, use some kind of a handle, a tripod, or whatever it is, or it could be, let's say, a selfie stick, or something maybe in between. And then once one plays with that, one acquires more of the sense of how to use a camera. In other words, if I'm starting with just a phone camera and I don't know much about the technicalities, or I probably, I would say I knew more and I didn't use it a lot, and so it is in my active memory any longer. So that I have to essentially relearn some things I maybe already knew at some point as a beginning photographer. And I think that once one sees what is possible in terms of the technical equipment one can be using, that can be also overwhelming. And I think that while it is well mentioned by many of the popular YouTubers such as Ali Abdal, that one has to just start and then everything else will fall into place, I'm more of an experimenter, and I'm kind of but there can also be a barrier. If there is a lot to learn, one can be stuck in the learning loop. Anything that could also be a drawback, or if one is not necessarily so comfortable with using all the props or whatever it is, the equipment, the setup, it can be really challenging, as in my case, I guess. And I think that the important, let's say, lesson I've learned at this stage is that one simply has to start on the one hand, and then maybe pick some sort of necessary kit of tools one can be using and playing with, and that will in itself be a challenge to start using effectively a set of tools, since it is a learning process, no matter how many videos or tutorials you see, no matter how many things you go through in terms of literature, all that, which also will be taking its own time in the process, so that if you wish to be absolutely ready for the challenge, it may be longer if you try to be a perfectionist. And I think this point is also coming up a lot on the internet or in the tutorial videos. And I think that for me, there is a sense of a lot of things I will need to be learning on my way towards being more proficient editor, more proficient recorder, etc., etc. But I think that well, another part is being a presenter of something else, of something that can be of interest, or as some say, of something that I would wish to watch actually myself as well. So far this is on a YouTube journey, and I'm trying to offer a reflection of what is it I'm doing here, and how it affects my learning curve, and where do I find myself in this learning curve. And this could be sort of a diary on this journey, on this, let's say, on a trajectory to get in a better sense. Okay, how does one do something which is more advanced and still accessible, and still something that somebody else can actually, let's say, maybe learn from, or adopt, or use in the practice, or actually making those first steps on YouTube.